Dana White just went live, and I feel like a lot of us are very disappointed because a lot of us were expecting Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, the announcement, or something to do with International Fight Week. Maybe Makhachev versus Oliveira or something like that, some big fight. And instead, we just got a bunch of fights that we already knew about. I mean, O'Malley Merab, most of us figured that was happening. Not too excited for that. I mean, Merab is entertaining. O'Malley is entertaining. It's not a bad fight, but still. The co-main event, Pena Harrison, not too excited about that. Already knew about that. And then Gary Prates, good main event. Already kind of knew about that, though. So nothing new was really said in that live. And we only have 2.5 more months until International Fight Week, and the matchmakers, they cannot mess this up. The UFC has really been lacking these past few months, and today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be building a realistic but stacked International Fight Week that I think the UFC can get done, in my opinion. Getting straight into it. So if you look back at the previous International Fight Weeks, right? Last year, it was actually a pretty weak one. It was supposed to be McGregor, Chandler, Poirier, McGregor, the trilogy. I think that was International Fight Week 2021. And to be fair, McGregor pay-per-views are never stacked. I mean, the one in 2016 was pretty stacked, but usually they are not stacked. It's just focused on the McGregor fight. So, they get a pass for that one. He kind of screwed them over. But if you look at the non-McGregor International Fight Weeks, the last two, UFC 290, Volk, Yair, great fight, decent fight. Moreno, Pantoja, one of the best fights of that year. You had Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, one of the best fights of the year. You had Dricus versus Whitaker. That was a crazy fight, crazy upset. Turner versus Dan Hooker. That was one of the best fights of the year. Insane card. One of the best fights I've ever seen live, fight cards. Then you had 2022 UFC 276, Adesanya, a massive star, taking on Cannonier, not the biggest fight, but still. Volk Holloway, massive trilogy. Sean O'Malley was taking on Pedro Munoz. I think that was his first ranked opponent, if I'm not mistaken. The card wasn't really that good watching it live, but in hindsight, the hype was there. It was a hyped up card and it was supposed to be amazing. So they usually do deliver. They've slowly been getting worse throughout the years, but still, they have the potential this year to make it one of the best International Fight Weeks of all time. However, it's a little worrisome because if you look at the rumors of what we're hearing Kai Kara France saying he's 12 weeks out from a camp and he's going to be fighting for the belt. Now, for me, I have no problem with Pantoja fighting Kai Kara France. I think that's probably going to be a really good fight. I think it's close to a 50-50. Kai Kara France, great on the feet, good takedown defense. I just don't want it. One, as the main event for International Fight Week, no way. Maybe a Brazil pay-per-view like main event. I wouldn't mind that. But even for a co-main event, it's just, for the card I'm building, it'll make sense in a little bit why I don't want this fight. And then we have Daniel Cormier. I get he's friends with Gaethje and Makhachev. He's saying that it's likely Islam will face him next. I swear, if we get Islam, Gaethje, and then Kai Kara France, Pantoja, just throw the whole thing away, honestly. I mean, it's pitiful. These are like the worst fights I feel like you could think of. I mean, Islam versus Gaethje. I know people will say, oh, Gaethje is super entertaining. He's done so much, whatever. But he does not deserve this title shot. This is the worst matchup they could possibly choose. And Kai Kara France, Pantoja, not awful for a main event, International Fight Week. It is awful. But even if they put these two together, it's just not great. They could do so much better. And if they do Islam versus Gaethje, what are we going to get? Arman versus Gamrot, the rematch. Oliveira, Ilia, I guess is good, but still, it just doesn't make sense. And for my card, I feel like this is what they should do for the next International Fight Week. In my opinion, in the coming months, this is the perfect International Fight Week. This is as good as it gets, and it is realistic. They could absolutely do this, and this is why I don't want Pantoja, Kai Kara France on this card, because I don't want 3 5-rounders. They've done it for UFC 300. I don't want to see it. It doesn't make sense. Just put that on the July pay-per-view, the August pay-per-view, something like that, in Australia, Brazil. Don't put it on International Fight Week, in my opinion. I think what they should do is have this as the main and co-main event. Imagine all four of these guys at a press conference trash talking each other. It's going to be super entertaining. Ilya is going to be going after everyone after, I think he's friends with Armin, but still, he's going to be going after Islam, after Oliveira. They've been trash talking. Oliveira and Islam may go back and forth. Armin may go back and forth with Islam. You never know. And on top of that, whoever wins the co-main event can face off with the winner of the main event. There's going to be so much promo. They're going to call each other out on the mic. This is a promoter's dream come true. This is exactly what we need. And all of them are ready to fight for July or June or whenever. It makes perfect sense. And this may be a hot take. I know I have here Ilya versus Islam. I wouldn't mind. Obviously, I'm hyped for that fight. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Islam versus Armin, the rematch, a rebooking, and then Ilya versus Oliveira, the co-main event. The reason is I think Armin is more deserving of a title shot than Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. I don't think that should be a hot take, but still. And I know there's some people who are going to be like, oh, well, he pulled out of the last fight on a few days' notice or something, which is ridiculous. And Dana said that he's not fighting for the title anymore. I get Dana had a little hissy fit or whatever. We all were pissed. He deserves the title shot. And he arguably, I think, has not as good of a chance as beating Islam as Ilya because of Ilya's finishing ability. But in terms of outclassing Islam over 25 minutes, he has the best chance out of these three other guys, I guess, in my opinion. But this is what I want to see. The only worry that I have for this and the only downfall is if Ilya or Islam is close and they need a rematch, then it kind of puts the entire division, behind. It holds up the division. Even if they do Armin versus Islam and Armin wins, that kind of kills a lot of the stuff. If Ilya beats Oliveira, it's still going to be cool. Ilya versus Armin for the belt, but it won't be as big. So for that reason, I do prefer Islam versus Ilya, Armin, Charles Oliveira, whoever the co-main is, 5 rounds, 100%. This is what I want to see. And I do think that it is realistic. And I think most fans would agree this is probably the best outcome that we could possibly have for International Fight Week. Now, this already has 4 big names on it. We don't really need any other stars. We just need fights that matter and fights that are going to build momentum to the actual fight. Fights that we're not super excited for, before the fight. We're not nervous. But there's going to be knockouts, crazy fights, and the stadium, the fans are going to be going crazy. So which fights are that? Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov. This is rumored. I think it's going to happen. Great featured fight. Outside of when Paulo fights Strickland, he always brings it. Kopylov always brings it. This should be entertaining. It's probably going to be a striking match. Probably going to be a war. And I think it's perfect for this card. The next fight I have... Now, it's tough because so many guys in bantamweight are booked. I'd like to see Marcus McGee, Rob Font. I think that's going to be a guaranteed fun fight, another good striking matchup, and, a chance to see a knockout again. Marcus McGee, he deserves to fight someone up the rankings. You could say the same for Rob Font, but he's 40, he's old. I get he's on a win streak, but you might as well just have him fight down. I would say Kyler Phillips, but he's so bad. He had such a bad performance against Rob Font. His next fight will be out of the rankings. I don't think he deserves to fight anyone ranked. Rob Font, though, maybe he could fight, I guess, Song Yadong, but everyone's booked up. I think that this fight makes sense, in my opinion. And opening up the main card, they're probably going to throw a random NPC WMMA fight on the main card. But assuming that they don't do that, for a main card opener, in my opinion, a really good one would be Zellhuber versus Michael Johnson. This may sound kind of crazy. Michael Johnson, I think, got called out by Zellhuber recently, and I think it's a fun fight. Look, Michael Johnson is coming off of a really crazy knockout, and Zellhuber is coming off of one of the best fights, maybe of all time. They both always bring it. Both super entertaining. It's going to be a really fun striking match, and it should be a fun fight and could easily end in a knockout. I think that this is a good tone setter for the card, and they're already going to be spending so much money on the main event and co-main event. They don't want to make it too stacked like 300. So in my opinion, I feel like that this is the best card and most realistic card that we can get. Let me know what you think in the comments. I've talked about the main and co-main on what it should be for a while. I think we need to see the Arman and Oliveira rematch, 5 rounds. I would prefer that. Co-main event, everyone's going to be excited for it. Main event, Ilya, Islam. Winner fights the winner. Loser fights the loser, maybe. But yeah, that is my thoughts on what we should be doing for International Fight Week. They probably will mess it up. They'll probably do Gaethje and Islam and Kai Kara France and Pantoja because they can't get anything right anymore. But yeah, that is it for me. Let me know what you guys think.